Játék Pelletier mai initially Billigana Basichin, Kima Chini Dashache, Billigana Dashanale. Welcome back to Resball. Today we are going to talk about Eric Dixon and just the amazing scoring that he did this year. Fifth year player out of Villanova. You don't know about Eric Dixon? Well, you're in luck today. I'm going to argue for Eric Dixon being on draft boards and certainly being draftable. So let's go ahead and start right about now. So Eric Dixon, like I said, fifth year senior coming out of Villanova, maybe the last Jay Wright guy. We still got Jordan Longio. Maybe can sneak in there as well and be on draft. Probably more undrafted range though, to be quite honest. But Eric Dixon came into Villanova in 2020, recruited by Jay Wright. Last three seasons, first three seasons for Eric Dixon played with Jay Wright, and then the last two with Kyle Neptune and that staff. Eric Dixon, born in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. Eric Dixon is the pride of Abington High School, where he left Abington High School after 4 years in Pennsylvania as their all-time leading scorer. In 2020 freshman season at Villanova, spent 5 years, really kind of came in as like, I don't know, it seems like a scorer, seems like a stretch big. The shooting kind of went and waxed and waned. And then this last season, fifth year, at Villanova, finished the season as the 2025 NCAA scoring champion. Yes, Eric Dixon just got bucket after bucket and ended up being the leading scorer for the 2025 season in NCAA Division I basketball. Other thing to consider, Eric Dixon leaves Villanova as their leader all time. The whole history of Villanova basketball, Eric Dixon is number one, their all-time leader in games played, per player efficiency rating, offensive win shares, offensive box plus minus usage, and Eric Dixon is Villanova's all-time leading scorer. Yes, you heard that correctly. Think of all of the great players that we've seen at Villanova throughout the years. Eric Dixon leads them in scoring, like Randy Foy, Alan Ray, all these dudes, right? Even going back in the 70s or whatever. Nope. Now it's Eric Dixon who is Villanova's all-time leading scorer. So let's start breaking down the stats right now. Again, everything here I'm getting from sportsreference.com, sports-reference.com. If you don't use Sports Reference, you should. So final season for Eric Dixon, 2024-2025 at Villanova, 23.3 points per game, pulled in 5.1 rebounds, had 1.9 assists, 0.8 steals per game, 0.3 blocks per game, and then 2.1 turnovers per game. Shooting splits for Eric Dixon this past season were 48.3% from 2-point range, 40.7% from 3-point range, and then 81.3% from that free throw line. If you go into the advanced stats, this all translates into a true shooting percentage of 58.3%. And really, I want to pause here and take a look at these true shooting percentages. As a freshman, 53.6%. As a sophomore, 57.5%. A junior, 58.6%. Fourth year senior, 58.5%. And then as a fifth year senior, 58.3%. Those last three seasons, just focus on that. If you want to talk about a veteran who understands consistency and understands how to maintain their level of excellence. I mean, the three-point shot in the junior year was really good. The three-point shot in his fourth year wasn't so great. It was around 34%. It's kind of what knocked him. And then the last season, I just said 40% on a ridiculous volume. But it still maintained 58%. You know how hard it is to maintain the same true shooting percentage in back-to-back years, let alone like in 3 straight seasons? This should be number one starting point for anybody diving into Eric Dixon. I mean, he's a Villanova guy. I know Jay Wright's been gone for a couple seasons now, and people kind of don't think of Villanova guys like that anymore. But the idea of them normally was like they're prepared for a role at the very least. They know what to do. They know how to fill their spot, and they're just going to be successful in the NBA because of the system they ran is very NBA, system. And every guy that's recruited is like, hey, this is your spot. This is your role. We need you to play it. And even if they are the lead guy, they still have to have role player skills. I mean, think of the guys that have been the most successful, Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges. They didn't start out coming in being the lead guy. They came in as a role player and filled that role. And then use their skills to develop along the way while still getting consistent minutes as a role player. Now, I'm not going to say Eric Dixon is going to turn into Jalen Brunson or Mikal Bridges. I'm just, again, getting us to rethink about the Villanova guy and why a lot of those dudes got that label is because they came in already knowing how to fill a role, and the true shooting percentage for Eric Dixon these last 3 seasons definitely highlights that, because he's like, I have to maintain this efficiency. And even if my shot's not falling, even if my 2-pointers aren't working the way I want, I still am going to find a way at the free throw line or somewhere else to maintain that 7 level of efficiency. Other things to look at this season: 34.7% usage. I mean, he left Villanova as an all-time leader in usage, probably mostly due to this season. It's that anytime somebody is over like 32% usage, it's ball dominant doesn't begin to describe how much usage they got. 13.1% assist percentage to 9.7 turnover rate. I mean, this is, again, I implore everybody, as we did with Carter Bryant, where you looked at it and it was like, it's just like kind of 1-to-1 assist to turnover. And it looked okay. But then you look at the numbers and you're like, oh, his turnover rate is a lot higher than his assist rate. So it indicates like, okay, this is something to work on. Eric Dixon's kind of the reverse with this: 67 assists to 75 turnovers this year. So you're like, he can't really pass. But again, go back to the turnover and assist rate: 13.1% assist percentage to just 9.7% turnover rate. If you want to know how this is calculated, think of the usage. You got to start with usage, because you're like, okay, this guy is given the ball a lot. The percentages there reflect how often, when he has the ball, is he able to pass out and create a shot for others, and how often when he has the ball in the time he has usage, that he turns that over. So that's just the thing. I know the numbers, just the raw stats, don't look great because there's more turnovers than assists, but think about all the time that he had the ball, and you look at the percentages: 13.1% assists rate. I'm not going to argue like he's going to be some massive passer, but that's fine, especially for a role player, which is what I'm going to argue for Eric Dixon. And then 9.7, anytime anybody has under 10% assist rate, they take care of the ball. And if you have over 30% usage and you still maintain under 10% turnover rate, that's incredibly rare. And I can already hear the people out there, that's because he didn't pass the ball. It's like, okay, cool. I mean, he led that NCAA in scoring. Did you really want him to pass the ball out of that? And what I'm going to argue for here too is that he's a stretch forward, just like I laid out. That's why I grouped Carter Bryant, Yasiel Lindenborg, and Eric Dixon together, that you're probably projecting them to be that stretch four. Measurements for Eric Dixon here: 6'7.5 inches tall, 258.6 pounds, 6'11.5 inch wingspan. So pretty good measurements. Definitely a bulky dude. Just from the body type, if you look at Eric Dixon and you grew up watching 90s basketball like I did, he reminds me, just in the body type, not so much in the game, but the first time I looked at him, I was like, oh man, I think I'm seeing Anthony Mason like all over again. I'm sure this thing, Mason's kid, he was built pretty much the exact way, where he's super wide body, super wide shoulders. And Dixon even kind of has that shot that Mace did, where he like put the ball all the way up and then did his follow through and stuff. So, yeah, I'm not saying he's Anthony Mason, Eric Dixon, but he does look like him, and body type and everything reminds me so much of Mace. So there's that. Let's dive into the shot chart. We'll start with these simple zones again. If you just look at Eric Dixon's shot chart, again, just from threes, mid-range, paint, and at the rim, obviously the one thing that stands out: 205 threes from above the break, and he knocked down 86 of them for 42%. I mean, I don't know if we're going to see anybody else this draft cycle who took more above the break threes than Eric Dixon. And 42%, my goodness. If you look to here, 3 of 7 from outside that area. What does that mean? That means that basically like 3 feet and out. You're shooting from the logo, you're shooting from half court or whatever. So he is one of the few that took multiple attempts from way out there. 3 of 7, 42.9%. So he can hit some of those super long desperation type of threes when need be. Corners is where like you're going to be like, I don't know about this, Steve. Like, if you want him to be a stretch four and he's only shooting 34.1% from the corners, 14 of 41, like that's a bad thing. Like, sure, but again, from the harder parts of the court and the longer parts of the court, he knocked down 42.1%. And what Villanova asked him to do is not be a corner 3-point shooter. I think this is somebody that scales incredibly easy to just be a corner 3-point shooter if they wanted to in the NBA. He took a total of 253 threes, I think is what it was. Let me look at these totals again. Yeah, 253 threes. And when you looked at that shot chart again, only 16 of them came from left corner, 25 of them came from right corner. Again, 200 of them, over 200 of them came from above the break. So it's just the role he was asked. If you shoot 42% from the longest parts of the court, and you're going to argue that he can't be a corner 3-point shooter, it's like, I don't know what to tell you. If you really don't believe that that's an easy transition, again, I just don't know what to tell you. The other good things to look at here, unlike Yasiel and Carter Bryant, this is where we see somebody who does know how to operate in the mid-range. I don't think that's what we're going to ask him to do in the NBA, but it is a good thing to know when this guy is run off the line. He has a bag and he has tricks to get to shoot 42.1% from right elbow, 38.5% from left elbow, and then 41.2% from the baseline, 14 of 34. I thought his left baseline shot was probably the best, like where he was either able to get off the dribble or do some things in the post, back guys down, and do a nice little turnaround shot. He does have a nice turnaround shot. I don't think he always hits it consistently. Part of that might be because, like, the rest of that Villanova team, it's like Wiggle Poplar and Eric Dixon, and outside of that, you hoped you got production out of other guys. And from the other side, the right baseline, like, he just really couldn't hit anything. He took 33 of them, almost the same amount as from the left, but only hit 8 of them. So that's the part that drags the mid-range down. If you just look at the mid-range stuff altogether, to 35.4%, 35 of 99. It looks bad, but again, it's kind of like the Carter Bryant from above the break threes, where you look at it and you're like, oh, there's one area of the court that's really dragging it down, and the other parts of it, you're like, I trust him to take it. Didn't really do anything in the paint, which I'm like, whatever, sure, maybe you can get a push shot, like maybe you can get a floater or whatever. But I'm not asking Eric Dixon to do anything in the paint. I'm not going to ask him to do much outside of shoot threes. And then he did convert a lot at the rim, 107 of 163 shots at the rim for 65.6%. So that is good for somebody who took a tremendous volume of shots from everywhere. And 163 shots at the rim is a lot. So the fact he's above average at 65.6%, that is good. Those are just the two basic things that Eric Dixon has to do. Convert your shots to the rim, because we're asking you to play power forward. But number one, fire away from three. Again, I think Eric Dixon's kind of been like, I don't want to say necessarily forgotten, but I think people want to dismiss him for whatever reason. I think part of it is just being one of the leading scorers and having so much usage. Those types of players tend to get discounted anyway every draft cycle. Go back every NCAA season and see who the leaders in points were, and most of the time they're given a ton of usage, and most of the time they're guys that are super inefficient. But I just laid it out in the beginning, 58% true shooting, whether he was a supplementary role player, whether he was like kind of number 2, number 1, or whether he was the man who led the NCAA in scoring. It's a very easy case to make, to me, for Eric Dixon. And there's a guy that's almost like a carbon copy of this, and that's George Niang, who I think Eric Dixon compares incredibly favorable to. Go look at Niang. Niang, same way. He was a leading scorer on an Iowa State team for 4 years. People didn't think he would make it in the NBA because he played kind of power forward center. Even though he was undersized, he's about 6'7", 230, so he's a little lighter than an Eric Dixon is. But he got better as a shooter. Number one, that was the thing, and scored just over 20 points per game in his final season at Iowa State, and came into the league knowing like the jump shot is what is going to make me money. And the other part about Eric Dixon, which I haven't really brought up, is the defense. Like, defensively, I think that's really what holds back Eric Dixon. 29 steals and 10 blocks this past season, especially the blocks. I mean, Eric Dixon amassed 70 blocks across 5 years. I mean, we saw last time Yasiel did that in like one season. So if you're wondering, like, 70 blocks doesn't seem so right, remember it's 5 years, and there's players we're going to show you along the way that make 70 in 1 year. So not good in 10 in one season. I know he was the leading scorer. I know they asked him to do other things, but that's still incredibly tiny amount of blocks for somebody who's 6'7", 6'8", 260 is a big dude with 6'11" wingspan. And he's a big man. It's not like it pulled him away from the perimeter so much. That the defensive side is where I think people are going to definitely poo on Eric Dixon just because he didn't do so much there. He's not really as disruptive in the passing lanes, although he occasionally can flash it. Definitely not somebody you want to get caught on too many switches and everything else, but he's a Villanova guy. They understand positioning, they understand scheme and what to do. And again, why I bring up George Niang, I would ditto for him, right? Even now, people are saying, "Oh, that guy's too short," and blah blah blah, whatever. Toughness, though the toughness, like Niang is definitely a like fight you guy, and if he gets embarrassed on defense, he's probably gonna go out there and hard foul somebody just to get back at them, which is good. Is what you need at this kind of a profile and position. And if you're knocking down 40% of your threes from the longest parts of the court, and if you're like a George Niang who just catches fire for a quarter and hits like 5 threes, yeah, that's an easy sell to me. I have Eric Dixon at 60 right now on my big board because I do think he should be at the end of round two. But the more I've dove into it, the more I'm like, I feel like probably this should be somebody I'd push up later into like 45 in that area. Absolutely in the second round. I think he could go just about anywhere. There've been a lot of draft people that have talked about this of like, well, once the lottery stops, like I don't really know who to go for, and like you could make a case for a bunch of different people. And I think Eric Dixon is somebody that anywhere in the second round. I always think of my Pistons. I mean, that's who I'm always going to default to when thinking about drafting. And at the 30s, 37-ish pick that they have, if they took Eric Dixon, yeah, I'm not going to be mad at it. And anybody that is, I would argue back to them of like, no, we've said it a lot. All of us have said it a lot. We need a volume 3-point shooter to help this lineup in 6'7", 6'8", 260. Like, and if he can just chuck away like a George Niang like that, then yeah, definitely somebody that you always need in the rotation. That's why Niang has had work ever since he's caught on in the league. He's been from Utah, he's in Cleveland, Philadelphia. He just knows how to play, and he utilizes his 3-point shot first and foremost. And occasionally he does still bust out those like number one scorer skills that he amassed at Iowa State. And I think Eric Dixon could do those same things of like, the turnaround shot and all those things when he's run off the line. And really, when you're looking for role players later in the draft, that's one of the things I've heard a lot of draft guys talk about, especially the no ceilings guys. I know Stephen Gillespie and Maxwell Bombach talk about this a lot of when they're looking at the second round guys. It's like, okay, who was the man who like could do a bunch of things that you can scale back the role and then feel comfortable that if they're pushed to do something else, they can do it because they've done it before. And Eric Dixon is like the quintessential guy of that in this draft class. Do not discount him. Tremendous shooter. You see the shot just gets better every year, increasing the volume. And the other thing to look at is that free throw percentage. As a freshman, 64.5% from the free throw line. Every year after that, 82.1%, 79.2%, 86.2%, and then the final season, 81.3%, maintaining 80%. If you average all four of those years out, it's 82.2%. Again, it's one of those things that bothers me where some people, like a lot of people with the Jeremiah fears are like, look at his free throw percentage. That shows you he's a good shooter. But then you go to Eric Dixon, they're like, oh no, man, he's been kind of inconsistent. Oh no, man, like is you going to trust the guy that had all this usage? How many other guys would, do the same with his usage and shot? It's like, come on, you can't have it both ways. Multiple years, over 80%. You see the volume and everything go up. And he has these other skills that if he needed to, he could, but easily scaled into a stretch role. Do not discount Eric Dixon if you don't have him within your top 60, or I guess it's top 59 this year, because I think one of the second rounders got rescinded for whatever reason Lord Silver demanded. He should be draftable again anywhere in the second round, probably somewhere more around 45, just because the defense is limiting for certain, and you're really only drafting Eric Dixon to do one thing, which is pop a ton of threes, but it's still a very valuable skill set. Things to look at on YouTube for Eric Dixon. College Basketball Scouting has a great scouting highlight video on him there. Sublime Basketball might be one of the best resources for Eric Dixon because they've done a bunch of different videos on Eric Dixon, whether it's like highlights or specific games there. And then Nova Shot Network, if you want to just look at great games and just look at the games that Eric Dixon played, and not so much of like the pause and do the scouting stuff. Nova Shot Network, definitely your one-stop shop for pretty much any Villanova prospect, but they probably have the most videos by far on Eric Dixon. So again, check out Nova Shot Network, Sublime Basketball, and College Basketball Scouting for all great stuff on Eric Dixon there. Last thing to end with, 2025 NCAA scorer, Villanova's all-time leading scorer, 253 threes, 40.7%, over 82% from the free throw line the past 4 years. You can buy into Eric Dixon as a stretch four. Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. We will catch you next time. And next time we're going to begin a new position group. I wonder what it could be. We're going to